Hey, what's up folks, how's it going? This is Watch from MW Technology, and today we're going to be taking a look at the best budget over-the-ear ANC headphones that you can get for under $100. Specifically, we're going to be taking a look at the Soundcore by Anker Space Q45s, the JLab's JBuds Luxe ANC wireless, as well as the Sony WH-CH720N. Now, based on my research thus far, these three are some of the most popular budget-oriented ANC over-the-ear headphones that you can get, and some of my favorite in this category. But we're going to be determining which out of the three is the best overall in terms of price, design, comfort, connectivity, ANC/transparency mode, the overall sound quality, and battery life. Now, first let's talk about price. Both the Soundcore and Sony are just under $100. And the JLabs are the cheapest at $79. In terms of the build and design, I think the JLabs do feel the most plasticky out of the three. They do have a collapsible design that uses plastic hinges and 4 different color options and a fairly rugged overall look. The ear caps themselves are fairly soft with a fabric headband lining, and probably the best thing about the design is the button layout. It's the easiest out of the three to control out of the box. You know exactly where the playback and volume controls are, which are more confusing on the Soundcore and Sony. The Soundcore Space Q45s have probably the nicest build materials with ultra soft ear cap design and headband, up there with what you would get with Bose products and things like that. They have a foldable design which employs metal hinges, so a little bit more durable than the JLabs, and a matte black finish in this version, but there are 3 other color options. The button layout is a lot more confusing than the JLabs. It's kind of hard to tell what button does what, and the placement is not ideal as well. So it's definitely going to take some time for the user to get used to what button does what and the placement of them. Now, initially when I got the Sony WH-CH720Ns, I felt that they were a little bit flimsy because the headband design was so thin. But once you actually use them on a day-to-day basis, they're actually fairly robust and durable with decent build quality and ultra soft materials when it comes to the ear caps and headband. They have a decent button placement, not as good as the JLabs, but a lot easier to control than the Soundcore, and they're very neutral looking, very understated. And if you're a fan of simple, clean design with no big logos on the side of the headphones, and if you're a fan of that understated look like myself, you're probably going to favor the look of these out of the other two. Now let's talk about the fit and overall comfort of these cans when you have them on your head. First, let's talk about the Soundcore Q45s. Thanks to the ultra soft materials on the ear caps and headband, they're very comfortable. The only problem is they're fit a little bit loose on my head, even if I have it tightened up as much as possible. And if you're going to train with these things or do kind of hardcore headbanging, these things will just fall right off, and it's just the nature of the design, which is just a little bit loose fitting. And I would say I have a kind of medium-sized head, not too small, not too big. The JLabs feel a little bit more secure in the head with a tighter overall fit. And if you are going to do some extreme vigorous headbanging, they will eventually come off and are probably not ideal if you do a lot of dynamic movements for working out or any kind of training regimen. They're probably not recommended. And generally speaking, I think you shouldn't be really wearing over-the-ear headphones. If you're seriously training with them, you would probably go with a pair of in-ears. But with that being said, the Sonys actually feel really great. Very comfortable. You can wear them all day because they're the lightest out of the three by almost 100 grams. They weigh just about 188 grams versus you're looking at about 238 for the JLab and over 300 grams for the Q45s. And no matter how vigorously I headbang or move my head back and forth, they would pretty much just stay put. So in terms of the overall fit and comfort, I think the Sonys are the best out of the three. Moving forward, let's talk about connectivity. From a wireless perspective, both the JLabs and the Soundcore use Bluetooth 5.3 versus 5.2 on the Sonys. Not a big difference between the two. 5.2 versus 5.3 Bluetooth just improves things like connectivity management and efficiency, and the overall sound quality between Bluetooth 5.2 and 5.3 is exactly the same in terms of audio bandwidth and codec information, things like that. And all three of these can utilize dual connectivity options, so you can connect to 2 Bluetooth devices at the same time. The only difference is that the Sony and the Soundcore utilize a analog 3.5 millimeter headphone connection, so you can actually use them as a passive wired pair of headphones, versus the JLabs don't have that 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Now, moving forward, let's talk about the ANC and transparency modes. We actually developed a test where we can easily compare all three and get a good idea in terms of which one does best in terms of both modes, where we place some background noise through the computer speakers, and just about 1.5 feet away, we place some headphones, and inside the left ear cap, we seal a wireless microphone. Then we measure the waveforms to see how much suppression is going on in the ANC mode and how much amplification is going on in the waveform in transparency. So if you take a look at the results from the ANC perspective, which one actually has the lowest peak on the waveform in green, you'll see that the Soundcore is doing the best, the JLab is doing the second best, and the Sony comes in third place. Transparency mode, where we want to actually amplify the noise as much as possible, you're seeing that the peaks are the highest on the JLabs, and then the Sony is the second best, and ironically, the Soundcore is actually the worst in terms of its transparency mode. And just to confirm that personally, I do find that the Soundcore is the best in terms of ANC out of the other two, and the transparency mode is the best on the JLab, so I can confirm that these test results are fairly accurate. Now, besides that, let's actually get into the most important factor of any headphones, and that's the overall sound quality. Well, sound is always subjective, but to my kind of semi-trained ear, I do find that the Soundcore Q45s sound the most neutral. They have the flattest overall EQ response based on what I can hear, and the volume and overall compression level is the least amount. So compared to the Sony and the JLabs, they're the quietest, so you're going to have to turn them up if you do like a louder overall sound, and they have less natural compression in the drivers compared to the other two. The JLabs, on the other hand, have probably the biggest kind of shift in terms of compression and frequency response. They definitely have a bias towards punchier midtones, but at the same time lack the high definition of the frequency response curve from 10 to 20,000 hertz, so you don't get that same shimmer effect from hi-hats and clap echo effects in your music. And to me, out of the box, due to the compression and EQ processing that's inherent in these cans, they definitely feel the least neutral sounding and probably the worst out of the three. The Sony 720Ns definitely don't feel as neutral sounding as the Q45s. They have a lot more bass compression and a little bit more color into the sound. Not as much processing as the JLabs, but I think there's a pretty good balance of post-compression and a flat overall frequency response curve to give plenty of enjoyment in your music that doesn't enhance or take away anything out of the natural source. So for me, they're probably the most balanced sounding out of the other two and probably my personal favorite. Now, moving forward, let's talk about battery life. Now, the best battery life, according to the manufacturer, is the Soundcore Q45s, where you get 50 hours of playback time with ANC on, and with it off, you get 65 hours. The JLab is not too far behind, and realistically, you probably get very similar listening times between the JLabs and the Soundcore, but according to JLabs, you get 40 hours of ANC and 70 hours with ANC off. Both have quick charging capabilities and everything like that. The only exception is that the Soundcore does have that 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, so you can passively listen to it when your battery runs out, which is always nice. The Sony has the worst battery life, 35 hours with ANC on, and you get 50 hours with ANC off. You get fast charging capabilities as well as that 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, so you can listen to it without it being powered on. Now, to summarize everything we talked about, we're going to go over the standout features of each headphone. Firstly, let's talk about the Soundcore Q45s. It has the best ANC at this price point, no doubt about that. The other thing I like about it is that the sound is the most neutral sounding, least amount of color added to the EQ curve, and amount of compression to the audio source. The JLabs have the best transparency mode, have the best button layout, and it's the cheapest out of the other three and probably the most value for under $80. The Sony 720Ns have the lightest overall design. They're the most secure feeding, so if you are going to train with them, that's great. And I personally like the overall look of them the best with their understated overall design. I also like the overall sound that's coming straight out of of the box. It's not the most neutral sounding in the world, but it has a good amount of compression and volume for you to enjoy your music listening experience, and I personally like the sound of them the most out of the other two. Now, even though the battery life kind of sucks and the ANC also kind of sucks, I still think the overall user experience is superior compared to the other two, and they're probably going to be my picks. Now, besides that, that's really it. Check out the description down below if you want more information about all the headphones we've talked about. And if you haven't seen our higher end ANC headphone comparison, definitely check that video out. You'll also find that in the description down below. If you have any specific questions, love to know what you guys are rocking right now for your headphones. Are you using in-ears, over-the-ears, ANC, non-ANCs? Love to know what you guys are using right now. If you haven't done so, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share the video, and we'll see you real soon in the next one. Take care.